And now let's get out to Yosemite National Park. That is where we find Darren Peck this morning. He's going to be filling us in on the national park's history. Hi, Darren.
Good morning, Bethany. This was and still is a very big year in the history of Yosemite, in the history of California state parks, because the two of them share that important anniversary. It was 150 years ago that both of them got their start because of the overwhelming beauty of Yosemite Valley. In fact, take a look at Yosemite Falls behind me. It was in 1864 that, with the help of a lot of inspired locals here in California, Galen Clark among them, early senators in the state of California as well, one of them by the name of John Kness, who moved Congress and eventually then President Abraham Lincoln to do something that had never been done in the history of the world before, to set aside some place that had such significant and overwhelming natural scenic beauty to preserve for the public in general. There was no such thing as a National Park Service or a National Park idea. They didn't create a national park in 1864. They gave it to the state of California, in essence creating the first state park here in California and the first park designated by a government anywhere in the world. Now, it didn't go into national park status until 1890. By which point Yellowstone had already been created. So officially Yellowstone is the first national park. But that's only on a technicality of us having not set up the idea of a national park, because that's how much older Yosemite is. The idea didn't even exist then. It was given to the state of California, which is why we're also able to celebrate the 150th anniversary of California state parks. But the idea of setting Yosemite aside starts that year. It's 150 years ago, and the Park Service has been saying a lot about it. In fact, here's a few words from them on this.
So this concept that 150 years ago, there was enough foresight and enough vision of these very few people to talk about the preservation of Yosemite is truly a landmark moment, and we feel it's incredibly important to commemorate this achievement.
Okay, so I want you guys to take a walk with me out here for a second. I want you to see this tree that sits out here in the meadow. If you're just walking by this tree and you don't pay close enough attention, you might miss a very important detail. In fact, come on over here and look what fell off of it. There's an apple which came off the tree. Dan, go ahead and show the apples, which are actually still on the branch up there. What is an apple tree doing in the middle of Cook's Meadow in Yosemite National Park? They're certainly not native here. These were planted. These were planted after the 1860s and in the 1870s, when this had already been preserved as a state park, because the idea of keeping things 100% in their natural state hadn't evolved yet. There was a whole orchard of apple trees planted out here. This is the only one that remains. It's a significant piece of the human history here in Yosemite Valley, and it's also a really instructive little piece of evidence for how our ideas have evolved over time. How do you preserve a national park? What's appropriate? When we first saved this place, we were grazing cattle out here and using it to plant apple tree orchards. They kept one as a piece of that history, and if you walk by this tree in the fall, you can have an apple. The bears love it. Guys, back to you.
Are you going to eat that apple, Darren?
Probably not this one. If I could get one higher off the branch, I would, but I think they need probably about another month before they're really ready to go.
Okay.
We need to go, but Darren, speaking of history, what years were you working there in the park as a kid?
It was back in the mid-90s, so
Yes.
the picture that you guys have is from 1996.
Yes, we do have
Take
a lovely
look.
picture.
1996, working in one of the stores. Let me zoom
He's
in
so
there.
cute. I love the hair.
A young, frisky-faced Darren Peck working at Yosemite. He's back there once again in a place he loves so much. We'll check back with him later this morning. Let's get over to Sheldon Orvis and look at your ride to work.
Darren doesn't look much different